Seamwork Radio is on a little New Year break. My name is Taylor, and I'm a producer here. This month, we're re-airing some of our favorite episodes. And one of my favorite past episodes is from Season 2, when Sari interviewed Jennifer Wiese, the founder of Workroom Social and Camp Workroom Social. This episode is my favorite because Jennifer's mission and idea around creating community really resonates with me. Her upbeat attitude and determination around creating a space for like-minded people to come together is so inspiring. Since this interview in 2016, Jennifer has been doing what she does best, producing events and inviting people into her special spaces to create things they love. But since the pandemic hit in 2020, it's been a little harder for her to cultivate that in-person community. She is making it work though, thanks to the internet. One good thing to know is that her in-person events are not going away, and she actually hosted a successful camp this last October. So keep an eye out for future events. Be sure to catch up with Jennifer from Workroom Social on their website and social platforms. I hope you enjoy either re-hearing from Jennifer or learning about her for the first time. See you for a new season of Seamwork Radio really soon.
I always say to people, if no one else will be your friend, I will be your friend.
From Seamwork Magazine, I'm Sari Mitnick, and welcome to Season 2 of Seamwork Radio. On this show, we hear stories from people who love to sew. Meeting new people can be stressful for some of us. I think this is especially true in large group situations. I mean, just think about entering a party or an event or even a class by yourself. You're coming into this really uncertain situation. You're not sure who to talk to or what to say or what people are going to think about you. Jennifer Wiese says all that is understandable, but there's a trick to overcoming that awkwardness. It's all about setting an intention of being open and accepting, but not just of others, yourself too. Jennifer's the businesswoman behind Workroom Social, a sewing studio in Brooklyn, New York. If you've seen Jennifer around online, you probably recognize her big, enthusiastic smile. It's a smile that permeates her personality. You'll be able to hear it in her voice when she talks. Last year, Jennifer started a brand new event called Camp Workroom Social, a weekend-long event full of sewing classes and camp activities. Running this big event just made her all the more convinced that perfect is overrated and that you can make yourself and others a lot more comfortable if you're okay with that. Jennifer first learned to sew when she was in high school. If you think back to when you first learned to sew, you probably had to come to terms with the idea of things not being perfect.
When I was in high school, a friend of mine's mother, she sewed, and she made my homecoming dress for me one year. And I think we went to like Joann's and picked out fabric together, or maybe I just bought it with a pattern. Like I found a pattern I liked, and I found a fabric that I liked, and I gave it to her. And she had, oh God, I hope no one listens to this, and I'm going to get it wrong. She had like 3 or 4 sons, and one of the sons I was best friends with. And so I think maybe she like was really excited to have this experience to like sew for the daughter she never had. And I wasn't like super touched. I mean, I was touched that she made this thing for me, but I wasn't super like, oh my gosh, I need to go sew everything now. But I was in an independent study class and I needed a project. And because she had sewn this dress for me, I was like, oh, maybe like sewing could be my independent study projects.
The homecoming dress had first planted the seed of sewing in her mind, but it was this class that really got the ball rolling.
The class was very structured. So I had I think they were called mentors. I think I had, and so anytime I ran into a problem, I could go to this mentor and ask for assistance. And then the mentor was the person who like evaluated me in the end. My teacher, my high school teacher, she was so impactful. Like anything, when I told her I wanted to do this, she was like, great, we're going to make that happen. And she was the one who actually found me the sewing machine. I think she must have like asked friends. She found a sewing machine for me to borrow. It was really awesome.
Having that early mentorship experience was what really got her into sewing. It also showed her the value of having someone that could support and encourage you while you're learning. That lesson stuck with her.
And I made a king-size quilt and I made some garments, some of which I still have, and they are so embarrassingly bad. I know, but I love looking at them. They're just like ridiculous. And oh my gosh, this is so incredibly amazing. I made a prom dress for my teacher as it was like my final quarter project, and she actually wore it to the prom. And I just remember like it wasn't finished on the inside. I think bits of it were like taped together. It was so awful. And like her just wearing it meant so much to me. It was really awesome.
This early experience showed Jennifer that sometimes creating something that's perfect is less important than what it means to you and the relationships that form around it. Jennifer grew up and started working in the film industry. Her extroverted personality and positive attitude fit perfectly with her career, where she worked in publicity and event planning for movies in New York. But even though she loved planning events, over time she started to feel this career wasn't right for her anymore.
So after that, then I just kind of kept sewing as a hobby. And then when I was working in film in New York City, I was not liking my job. Not for the work. I really liked the work, which is why I ended up doing camp. But what I didn't like was sort of like the nature of the industry and like the stress level that it creates among the people who work in it. So I was like hating my job. And so I started taking some classes for fun at FIT. And so that's where I did a huge improving in my technical abilities.
Jennifer learned a lot about sewing and took some great classes, but she didn't really know anyone else who sewed. Then a friend mentioned that she was learning and suggested they take a class together.
So she wanted to take a studio in Philly that is no longer there. She wanted to take this dressmaking class, and she asked me if I wanted to do it with her. I was like, sure, I already sew, but I'm like, let's do this class. It'll be great.
Jennifer really looked forward to the class, but it wasn't what she expected.
You want to be in a place that feels like warm and friendly and inspiring, and that just wasn't this experience. The teacher, she wasn't friendly. Not that she was unfriendly, because that wasn't the case, but she just wasn't like warm. We walk into the classroom, it wasn't like, hi, welcome, who are you? And let me help you.
Jennifer also didn't feel like she was offered anything new in the class, anything she didn't already know.
For example, my friend had a fabric that had screen printed polka dots on it. And she really wanted to make sure she cut her pieces like straight grain. And so she was like, how do I ensure that I get the cross grain to be like exactly on the top of the polka dots? And the woman was just like, oh, like just be very careful. And I was like, wait, but no, that's not that's not good advice. Screen printed fabric is printed on the grain. So, and it was just a plain weave cotton fabric, probably quilting cotton or something. So I was like, if you rip the fabric along the grain, it will be, I don't say perfect a lot, but it will be perfect. So I remember I went back to a friend of mine who works in fashion, and I was complaining to her. I was like, I took this class and like I didn't get anything out of it. And she was like giving everyone like this wrong information.
Her friend said, why don't you teach? Jennifer's experience with running events in the film industry had taught her a lot about creating an experience and an atmosphere, something she saw as missing in these classes. Jennifer knew that she wanted to have a business someday. Her first thought was that she'd open a fabric store.
I'll open a fabric store, I'll be like Pearl Soho. That was like my dream. Pearl Soho is so pretty.
But she quickly realized that a fabric store wouldn't be the right choice for her. She didn't want to go into debt, and fabric would require just way too much capital. She tried designing and printing fabric, which she says ended up just being a big flop. In the meantime, she was teaching sewing at other people's studios.
At that point, I was like, I need to like have my own space to create the experience that I want people to have. Because for me, it's not just about the sewing. Obviously, is a huge part of it, but I think there's so much more. And again, because we are talking about leisure time, we're talking about hobby, I think that it's so valuable to have like that nice experience when you come to a class.
Jennifer wanted to create a total experience around learning to sew, not just teach one-off skills. For her, it was more about relationships. She took what she'd learned in her career in film and event planning to create something different for her students.
From a logistical point of view, I feel like one, more information is better. So I have taken classes at lots of other studios where like there's no communication. Like you sign up and then you're like, okay, show up at this date and time. Like maybe go to this other web page to download your supply list or whatever. But that's it. And from my events perspective, I just know that people want, and from my own personal point of view, people want communication. And the more communication you give people, the smoother something runs.
How do you think that your approach to teaching classes and that sort of aspect of warmth and I don't know, intimacy that you were describing before translates into the online world?
I don't really take well to the online world. It's so I struggle with that. I think, and I get this comment all the time from people. People say to me like, you not that I'm not approachable online or anything like that, but when people meet me, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're so much more energetic and fun and nice than you seem online." And I'm always like, like I don't know how to communicate. Well, and Sarah, because I've told you this many times, like writing for me, I just don't like, I don't feel like a strong writer. I don't know how to like write with my like authentic voice, right? In the online world all the time, like being your authentic self. And so for me personally, my authentic self is like live and in person. um, so I don't know. I really struggle with that. I want to bring that online. And I think, especially in the sewing community is so warm and friendly and supportive and encouraging. Everyone else does a great job of having that feeling online.
Even though communication is so important to Jennifer, the kind of communication she feels most comfortable with comes from her presence, not just her words.
Online can be a safer place for people who are shy because, you don't have to actually interact. You can if you want, or you don't have to, and you can edit and you can show your what you deem as your best qualities, and you don't have to worry about people seeing the other stuff, right? In real life it's harder because you see the good stuff, this stuff, and I'm talking about what you personally think, right? Not objectively. This is all subjective. What you personally think is your good stuff, but then what you also personally think is your not so good stuff, and that shows in real life, and that can be really stressful for people. So the way I see myself in my company is as the bridge between those two. So you can always feel comfortable coming to a Workroom Social event.
Eventually, Jennifer had the idea of doing some kind of large event. She tried doing one first in Austin, Texas, but the whole thing fizzled out and it just never really happened.
So I used to be a summer camp counselor. I don't think that's super surprising to anyone. And I ran experiential learning programs, so that's like ropes courses and stuff like that. And so I just thought, like, what if we try this again, but in a camp environment? Summer camp, sleepaway camp is like the embodiment of everything that I love. It's all about getting out of your comfort zone, challenging yourself, but doing it in like a very safe and encouraging environment. And so what better for sewing, right? Like, come challenge yourself, learn something new, totally mess it up. It's okay, because you're in this place that just is the people, and the actual physical environment is there to support you.
So Jennifer decided to jump in and do it. She started by finding teachers.
So I just like booked the dates. I sent emails to people and I said, guys, here's what I want to do. Here's the mission. I was so excited about because some of these people, they didn't know me, like Jen Beeman, who taught our pattern making class. She didn't know me. We'd never met before. I said to her in person when we met, I was like, thank you so much for participating because you had no reason to trust me because we've never worked together. And so I really appreciate you taking that leap.
She had teachers on board, but she wasn't quite sure if people would really come. She decided to sit on the contracts for the venue for a while. She was so nervous about whether people would really make it.
I put out once we had all the teachers booked, I had the website built and we launched. And I just said to myself, well, if no one signs up, I haven't signed these contracts yet. So, we'll just cancel and I'll refund everyone their money. And it was a year in advance.
But people did respond well, and they signed up. Jennifer was ready to take her unique perspective on creating a warm, welcoming environment and apply it to an event with over 70 sewers.
I was super excited, and then I was left with the idea that, okay, awesome, so now we have to actually make this happen. And that was sort of the beginning of it.
Coming up, how Jennifer learned that even seemingly major problems are less important than you think, in sewing and in life.
Things are gonna go wrong. Things go wrong all the time.
This podcast is created by the team at Seamwork. We're here to help you design and sew your own wardrobe. You can check out our patterns, classes, and community by visiting us at seamwork.com. If you like the idea of creating your own wardrobe but really struggle with actually making things that you want to wear, check out our free downloadable sewing planner. It's available at seamwork.com/go/planner. It's a totally free printable PDF, and you can use it to help you create a small collection of pieces that fits your style and your real life. It'll help you to define your goals, create a palette, design some looks, and then create a queue of projects to sew. Just visit seamwork.com/go/planner, enter your email address, and then we'll send it to you right away. We'll also send you a series of emails that gives you some tips and actually helps walk you through using the planner. So again, that URL is seamwork.com/go/planner, or just check for the link in the show notes. Jennifer Wiese had left her job in film to start a sewing studio with a vision. Classes that create a warm, open, inviting experience. Now she was ready to take that idea further and create Camp Workroom Social. One of the main things that appealed to Jennifer about creating an overnight camp was bringing a more childlike perspective and a sense of joy. What could make you feel more like a kid again than sleepaway camp?
I think that adults kind of go through their day to day without as much joy and adventure and curiosity as children. And I think that, life is hard as a grown-up. There's so many things that go wrong that you have to deal with. Like, as a child, you don't necessarily have to deal with bad things all the time, but as a grown-up, you do. And so to have that kind of attitude, I just think makes those hard times better and easier. And I find with my students that, they come into class with they put so much stress and pressure on themselves to make something that is just, I don't know, that they think is so incredibly amazing, but it might be the first class they've ever taken. And so I just try and challenge them to be more childlike. And if you give a child, a couple of tools and some instructions and go make this, they will put together something. And no matter what it looks like, in the end, they're so proud and they're check out this thing and it looks all kinds of crazy, but they're just so excited about it. And you, as the teacher, you're excited for them. You're like, that is totally awesome and amazing. But as a grown-up, I think that my students, especially in class, they like cling to their seam rippers, and every little mistake that they make, they want to take it out. And I just always feel so strongly about challenging them to, instead of taking something out and going backwards, to leave their mistakes and learn from them and just keep moving forward.
Jennifer wanted to create an event that had that sense of childlike openness, of forgetting about being perfect or impressing other people, and just being proud of who you are and what you can make. Camp seemed like the perfect way to remind people of that feeling of being a kid again.
The venue, Frost Valley, is like the quintessential overnight sleepaway camp. It's one of the largest facilities in the United States, and among Y camps, I think it is probably the like mecca. I used to work at a Y camp in Florida, and when I told people there that I was doing this, my friends were all like, "Oh my gosh, you're going to Frost Valley?" Like, so enamored and jealous and whatever. It's so cool.
Camp was held in October, when the weather was crisp and chilly and the leaves in New York were changing color.
It was incredible because people make fun of New Yorkers for their leaf peeping, right? We love like the fall when the leaves change colors and start to fall off the trees. It was like that perfect time. So it's like rolling hills and mountains of like these like, orange, red, and yellow leaf colored trees. Everywhere you see, you're walking mostly on trails to get places. There are definitely roads. But the walk between the sewing hall and the dining hall was down this trail, trees, and it snowed while we were there, which was so beautiful.
Jennifer wanted to start camp with a very clear message that things did not have to be perfect.
I started camp by telling everyone, guys, stuff is going to go wrong. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, let's all accept it right now. Stuff is going to go wrong. But that doesn't mean that it's bad. We just need to problem solve and sort of go with the flow and keep a good attitude about it and learn from our mistakes. And that goes for sewing classes. It also goes for the event, as a whole. And it goes for their other activities that they did, like archery. The first time you notch your arrow or your bow, whatever that's called, the first time you fire, like it's probably going to hit the floor. But, you set it up 10 times, the 10th time it's going to be great. But if you get so hung up on just how the arrow sits in the bow that you never fire, you're never going to get better. You know what I mean? Where you're channeling sort of like this idea that it's okay to like let go of your stresses and your pressures and your tensions to just learn and practice.
To start off with this idea of low pressure, Jennifer decided to begin with an activity that sewers wouldn't feel the need to excel at.
So we did weaving the first night, and I thought that would be like a fun way for everyone to have the opportunity to do a creative activity that wasn't what they like specialized. That would help people sort of release some of the notion of like, I have to do this perfectly, because if you're doing a new activity that you don't really know anything about, obviously it's going to look all kinds of crazy. So I thought weaving would be like but it's still like a textile art. So it coordinated really nicely. I really tried hard to set the mood that first night when everyone arrived, to do things that weren't too adventurous, because I didn't want to scare off people who were shy or introverted or who might be nervous. So I wanted to do things that were, kind of like chill, but still incorporated interaction. And then, like throw people into a new thing that they absolutely could fail at.
But not everything was perfect. Just as she expected, things did go wrong.
Okay, so we blew a fuse in the building. And so 2 of our classrooms didn't have power at all.
Oh, no.
So it's like there's like 26 sewing machines that just didn't have power, didn't work. And so, I think for a lot of people who would be faced with that situation, I think that they would like have a heart attack, like, what am I gonna do? We couldn't flip the circuit. Like it was totally fried. Again, for any sewing event planners out there, irons are the devil. They will blow the electricity really fast and easy. So, we ended up running, I think like 4 or 5 50-foot extension cords, like across the entire banquet hall, like into the different areas to like then hook up all of the power strips to give power to the machines. So, and we ran them all from the kitchen. So we had to unplug the industrial fridges and stuff to make that work.
So they had to deal with unforeseen problems, but in the end, everything was fine, and most people didn't even notice the loss of power. To Jennifer, this just proved that the problems you could look at as catastrophic are all a matter of perspective. Sometimes they're much bigger in your mind than in reality. To the campers, it was the relationships and the learning that were important, not that every detail went off without a hitch.
It seems like you put in a lot of work to structure it and set this really loving, open tone to the whole thing. Do you think
I put a lot of work into that?
It really seems like it. Do you feel like that worked? Do you feel like people were establishing friendships and getting to know each other better?
I think so. I really do. I'm gonna get a little choked up thinking about it. At the end of the weekend, well, you should connect with some people who went, and they'll tell you I was like crying at every moment because I was so like touched by the whole thing. But at our awards, we ended camp with an award ceremony, like any good overnight camp does. And at one point I look out into the crowd of about 90 people, and it's just like every other person is crying. I think that hopefully out of joy. I think that people really felt it.
Her goal was to bring people together, to make them feel comfortable enough and open enough to truly learn.
We had some pretty powerful personal moments happen. So there were a couple of people in different classes who, were so touched by the ability to remake clothes to fit them versus remake their bodies to fit clothes, to the point where they were just in tears because they were so touched by it. And that's such a great feeling. We had a couple of moms who've never been away from their children, and they, camp was their first vacation for themselves, and they were so happy to have the experience. We had one person who's never traveled before by herself, and she traveled to New York City and took the subway and hoofed her suitcase like up and down the train stairs, and found her Airbnb by herself or whatever, and made it to camp, and just felt so empowered. I think she told me, she was like, I feel like I could do anything now. I did this whole experience. And then she also made a pair of wearable jeans. Like, that's awesome.
But being open isn't just about learning new skills. Setting an intention of being open also changes the way we treat each other. It was important to Jennifer that she emphasize that. At the beginning of camp, she got everyone together and explained to them that she wanted them to use their body language to actively remain open to others.
You want to not be a bagel, you want to be a croissant. Okay, so what does that mean? So if you think about the shape of a bagel is a closed circle with a hole in the middle, right? So you think about like groups of people standing in a closed circle, and there's that hole in the middle where the conversation is. So if you are a person walking into a room full of bagels, that's really stressful and scary. And even me, who I like talking to strangers and I consider myself an extrovert, if I walked into that room, I would walk right back out. That is like traumatic for me. So instead of being a bagel, you want to be a croissant. You want to stand in groups that are like an open crescent shape, so that people can come in and out of the group comfortably and not feel like they're like, being intrusive and sticking their head in or whatever. You always want to be open to inviting more people in. And I think in general, if we all kind of kept this mentality all the time, I just think that the world would be a better place. I mean, how often have you, not even an official event, like maybe you're just waiting for someone at a bar and you're standing alone, like you might talk to the people next to you if they weren't closed off. But usually they are. So you're just like standing by yourself and it's totally awkward. So I just want to, try and help make people aware about how they can use their body language to make an atmosphere more comfortable and inviting.
Jennifer thinks her job as the person coordinating is to set that intention and make it clear to other people, and to facilitate the connections between them as best she can.
In any event I do, so whether it's like our party tonight or a class or camp or whatever, I always try and connect our students or our attendees to each other. And then usually I'll remove myself. So, I think it's so helpful to have someone, introducing you, because again, like everyone might not be comfortable introducing themselves. Like, hi, I'm Jennifer. Who are you? But it's easier if someone says, Jennifer meet Sari, Sari meet Jennifer. You guys both sew. And then you can start the conversation there, and then the bridger can stay or leave. Either one is fine. I think that's so helpful.
The thing that makes Jennifer feel best is knowing that she created an environment where people felt free to leave their comfort zones.
I got one email in particular from a woman who said she, connected. She said she's a super shy person and she doesn't usually connect with a lot of people. So this event in its entirety was like way out of her comfort zone, and it was a really positive experience for her. And that means so much to me, like to be able to make something where people who are shy and are nervous about these like big group things, to create an experience where they can participate and feel comfortable, like that. I'm like, okay, good job, well done to me. Like nothing could make me happier than that.
In the end, things did go wrong, and that's okay.
I'm not like, we're not trying to cover up like, oh, it was so perfect. Like nothing went perfectly, but it all worked out so well.
Seamwork Radio is brought to you by the team at Seamwork. Seamwork's an online community that supports you in creating a wardrobe that feels right for you. When you join us at Seamwork, you become part of our private community of makers, and you also get access to monthly sew-along classes, a library of over 200 sewing patterns, and tons of great resources to help guide you through the sewing adventure that you choose. Podcast listeners can get half off a Seamwork Unlimited membership, which means you can download as many of those 200 plus patterns as you want at any time, and our community will be there to guide and support you. If you'd like to join us for half off, just visit seamwork.com/go/podcast50. You can also find us on Instagram at Seamwork, or visit our YouTube channel, which is called Seamwork Video. We love hearing from you, so let us know if there's a topic or a personal story that you'd like us to cover. Thanks for listening to Seamwork Radio.